All right. Hi, this is Niki in Japan. Today I'm going to talk about TOEIC Part 2, listening. So, Part 2 of the TOEIC exam is what you call question response. So, you will hear one question and there will be three responses, all spoken in English. You will only hear the audio once. So, in question response, you have to choose the best response for each question or statement. So let's get on with five items today.
Number 13.
How do I report a lost piece of luggage?
A. Yes, this is the last one. B. There's a form to fill out. C. That's what the reporter told me.
All right. So generally in question response in part 2, there are three types of questions that you will encounter. So for number 13, this type of question began with how. How do I report something about the luggage? This is what you call a detail question. Detail questions begin with who, what, when, where, why, how, which, basically your WH and how questions. So, number 13 is a how question. So, the trick is you have to identify what kind of answers are will you encounter with how questions. How questions generally it could be anything. But I take note of context from the question. So for number 13, I heard about some luggage, lost luggage. Letter A mentioned a yes. So I think letter A is not an answer because you have other question like a yes no question that you will encounter in part 2. So A is not an answer. Letter B mentioned a form to fill out and letter C mentioning it to a reporter. So possible answers here are B and C because they tell you how. But based on context, because it talks about luggage, right? Letter B is the best answer here because it mentioned a form to fill out. So 13, the answer is B. Next up.
Number 14. What are the qualifications of the position? A.
A finance degree and 2 years experience.
B.
Yes, let's offer him the job.
C.
I work as a human resources manager.
All right. Number 14 is another detailed question. It began with what? What are the qualifications, right? For context, you have to take note of nouns and verbs that you hear from the question and from the responses. Letter A mentions a finance degree and some experience. Letter B mentioned yes, let's offer him a job. Letter C mentioned I work as an human resource manager. So, definitely it's not B because it is an answer to a yes no question. Letter C is related to work because they mentioned HR or human resource, but this is not what we're asking for. This is not what we're looking for. Letter C here is best for a who question. So the best answer for number 14 is A because it mentions what activities, finance degree, and 2 years work experience.
Number 15. You know how to adjust the copier settings, don't you? A.
It's in the main conference room.
B.
I have my own copy.
C.
Tammy can assist you with that.
All right. So number 15 is a different type of question. So number 15 here mentioned copy your settings, don't you? So this is an example of a yes-no question. A yes-no question, basically, you expect a yes or a no for a response. But somehow, sometimes the yes and no are implied. They're not directly stated as a yes or a no. Number 15 here mentioned don't you. So don't you, don't, do, right? Do not, do. So this is a helping verb. Yes, no questions involve helping verbs like is, are, was, where, can, could, do, did, done, does. So number 15 is a yes no question. Letter A mentioned conference room. Letter B mentioned I have my copy. Letter C mentioned Tammy can assist you with that. So for number 15, A is not an answer because it is best for a where question. Letter B mentioned I have a copy, right? So it's meant there to confuse you because the question involved a copier, but B mentioned I have a copy. Maybe letter B is good for a what or a who question. So for letter C, even though you did not hear a yes or a no, letter C here mentioned how to adjust the copier settings. So the response was Tammy can assist you to adjust the copier setting. So number 15, the answer is letter C. Next up,
Number 16.
Could you review the latest manuscript sent in by the author?
A. A number of errors. B. I'm working on that now. C. It's a classic mystery story.
all right. Number 16 here is another example of a yes no question. Could you review something? Could you review the manuscript? Could is a helping verb. So you should choose an answer that implies a yes or a no. Letter A mentioned some errors, a number of errors. Letter B says, I'm working on it now. Letter C says, it's a classic mystery story. Letter A is not an answer because it only mentioned activities. It could be an answer to a what question. Letter C is also not an answer because it mentioned it's a story. It could be an answer to a what question. So the best answer here is letter B. I'm working on it now. Could you review the manuscript? I'm working on it now. So for number 16, the best answer is letter B.
Number 17. How many microphones can we get for the debate? A.
Some local politicians.
B.
I'll ask the sound engineer.
C.
Yes, since the auditorium is large.
All right. Number 17 here is a how question. This is a detailed question. As I mentioned earlier, how questions are kind of tricky because the answer could be anything. Number 17 asked for how many microphones. So you would expect number to be an answer, but we didn't hear any number in any of the responses. Letter A mentions a local politician. Letter B mentioned I'll ask the sound engineer. Letter C says yes, it's a large auditorium. So letter A here is not an answer because letter A mentioned a who, a person, local politician. So it could be an answer to a who question. Letter C is definitely an answer to a yes no question because it mentioned yes, it's a large auditorium. It's also not related because it is a yes no answer. So the best answer for number 17 is letter B. How many microphones? Oh, let's ask the sound engineer, right? So sound engineer is related to microphone. So looking into context, the best answer for number 17 is letter B. So now this time I will replay all the audio so that you could answer on your own.
Number 13.
How do I report a lost piece of luggage?
A. Yes, this is the last one. B. There's a form to fill out. C. That's what the reporter told me. Number 14. What are the qualifications of the position? A.
A finance degree and 2 years experience.
B.
Yes, let's offer him the job.
C.
I work as a human resources manager.
Number 15. You know how to adjust the copier settings, don't you? A.
It's in the main conference room.
B.
I have my own copy.
C.
Tammy can assist you with that.
Number 16.
Could you review the latest manuscript sent in by the author?
A. A number of errors. B. I'm working on that now. C. It's a classic mystery story. Number 17. How many microphones can we get for the debate? A.
Some local politicians.
B.
I'll ask the sound engineer.
C.
Yes, since the auditorium is large.
So that is the end of our review for today. I hope you get something for today's lesson.